Hi, and welcome to How Humans Heal. I'm Dr. Donnie Wilson, and today I'm looking forward to introducing you to Dr. Brandy Cummings. She's a doctor of clinical nutrition, and she specializes in helping high achieving women who've tried everything to be able to break free from chronic symptoms, including burnout and emotional overwhelm, so that they can finally feel better and to really dig in even to subconscious patterns so they can heal their nervous system and their health. Thank you so much for joining us today, Brandy. I love getting to talk with you about this.
Hey, Dr. Donnie, it's good to see you again.
Yes, this is, we were saying it's such an important topic. It's the thing that we try everything else, right? We try, even sometimes we're, you and I both know with nutrition, we try to change our diet, we try to exercise, we take supplements, but we're really dancing around sometimes, like, and trying to even avoiding this emotional stuff that really needs our attention. And there's various ways out there for people to address their mental emotional health. What would you say if someone says, okay, I've been to therapy, I've tried this or that, and I still feel like there's an emotional component to my health issue? How do you help them to understand that there's other ways that you've found to help them?
Such a good question. So I think first we have to understand what the mind is and what the mind isn't. And so if we think about our conscious mind, that's about 5% of our mind. So this is our logic, our reasoning, our creativity. This is our goal setter, right? We can consciously say, I want to be free of HPV, or I want to lose weight, or I want to make X amount of money, or whatever it is. But we have the subconscious mind, which is the 95% that is actually running the show. So this is our programming, this is our beliefs, this is our responses to situations, this is our past experiences, this is our attitudes, this is the language that we're using about ourselves. And everything under the hood in this 95% of the subconscious mind is the goal getter. So it's going to bring you results in your life based on whatever programming is running in the background. And so if we have a lot of past traumas, significant emotional events, limiting beliefs, unresolved negative emotions, primarily anger, hurt, sadness, fear, shame, and guilt that we haven't achieved resolution to, then that is going to impact the results that we have in our life. And so it's really important. It's kind of a shift of perspective of thinking, and I have no problem with therapy at all. And if somebody has been going to therapy for years, decades, and still haven't gotten resolution, then perhaps it's time for a different perspective. And so from my perspective and my model of the world, and what's very effective for my clients, is if we can go into the subconscious mind, clear out what needs to get cleared out, reprogram things so that we are not running on programming that is not in alignment with our highest and best, then we're finally able to increase our internal frequency, which therefore our external environment has no choice but to recalibrate in alignment with this new frequency.
I love how you explained that, because it's when you're in it, when we're used to being in what I call stress mode, or a trauma response, right? Or literally most all of us have been in that since childhood. It's so familiar. It's this analogy of the fish in the fish bowl. They don't even, that's just your normal. You don't even know there's something outside of the fish tank. And
Right.
so what you're describing is, when you have this moment where you go, wow, I'm seeing that I'm repeating patterns, and I'm seeing that this is affecting my health. Sometimes that's what's really eye-opening, when we see it showing up in our health and we go, I want to change this. even though I realize it's been a state that my nervous system's been in my whole life, I want to change. That's when, you start to see that there's this possibility of a completely different perspective occurring. Before we talk more about how we have that happen, I wanted to just mention, what are some of the symptoms, like what might people notice showing up in their body, like, because we might not realize that this is in the background with our health, right? With what health symptoms do people come to you telling you about, when you start to go, oh, I think we have some subconscious patterns running in the background.
Yeah. So a big thing that I noticed right away is language. How are we talking about ourselves? How are we talking about the results that we have in our life? Are we in affect, meaning are we kind of blaming others or blaming our environment or blaming our circumstance? Oh, I've got bad genetics. Oh, this runs in my family. Oh, it's because I didn't grow up with money, or whatever stories we're telling ourselves. Oh, this is because I have this really stressful job. Like, are we taking radical self-responsibility for the results in our own life, which would be being at cause, or are we in effect of our circumstance and our environment? So I pick that up very quickly based on somebody's language. And it's like, it's kind of one of those things, like once you see it, you can't unsee it. And you can pick up very quickly if somebody is in effect or if they're at cause. So first thing is language. How are we talking about ourselves and about the results in our lives? As far as symptomology in the body, some very common patterns that I see. I see a lot of thyroid issues that has a strong connection, especially in women who feel like there were situations in their life where they couldn't speak their truth, where they weren't able to say what was on their mind, or if they were feeling stifled, or if they couldn't use their voice. That oftentimes I see that correlating with symptoms in the thyroid. Symptoms of the skin, I often see correlating to separation conflict, sometimes abandonment conflict. So if there was a period in your life where you feel like you got separated from a parent or from a child, and what does how that can manifest a lot of times is skin issues. For thinking about like people with HPV, a lot of times here there can be boundary conflict. If there was any kind of not just sexual trauma where somebody crossed a boundary, but if somebody crossed boundaries in other areas of your life where you feel like you couldn't stand your ground. And what I see often in that kind of tip me off that we need to dig deeper here is that they will loop. They will be stuck in a loop. They'll try all the things, they'll get a little bit of results, and then they'll go back. They'll get a little bit, or they'll get remotivated. New Year's is coming up at the time of this recording. They're going to get highly motivated, and then they fall off. It's because there's a motivation strategy that's running in the background in their subconscious that's keeping them looping. And we can loop in all areas of life with our symptomology, with our health, with our results that we're having in our relationships, in our spirituality, in our personal growth and development, in our finances. And if somebody is looping, that's a big tip off to me that there's something under the hood here keeping us in that loop.
Mm-hmm. So good. Such good insights. I'm also thinking of like pain. For me, it was migraines.
Yes.
I had migraines for many years, and it took me a long time to figure out, oh, this could be related to the emotional trauma that hadn't been fully addressed, or other kinds of even aches and pains, or even autoimmunity.
100%. Even, especially in women, like a lot of chronic shoulder pain, oftentimes when we dig deeper, I will learn that they, for whatever reason, either from a past significant emotional event or a past trauma or a stressful job or whatever it is, they feel like they have to bear the weight of the world on their shoulders, right? Like, I can do it. I can do it. Just keep piling it on. I got it. I got it. I got it. I'm just going to work harder, faster, better, stronger, longer. I got it. I got it. And a lot of times, even though there wasn't anything physically on their shoulders, it can show up in the body as chronic shoulder neck pain.
So even just this mind-blowing concept that our emotional stress and trauma can show up on a physical level, and sometimes it's those. So if you have unresolving symptoms in your body, whether that's an abnormal pap smear or anywhere else, could be on your skin, it could be in your joints, but if it's not getting better, then that should get you to kind of say, is there something else my body's trying to tell me here? And so then what you're describing is a process of being able to look within and discover what that is. It's because it's in the subconscious, that means it's not going to happen in our conscious way of thinking, right? Like, explain, how do you find that people best access this subconscious information?
Yeah, so the body is so much smarter and wiser than we will ever be. And the subconscious mind will continue to send you messages until you hear it, until you get the lesson. And so another kind of pattern that I see in people is that, over time, symptoms will get worse and worse. The message is getting louder and louder, or new symptoms or new diagnoses will happen, right? Or the same type of people that you don't really love or keep coming into your life, or you're getting the same results in other areas of life. And so that's kind of the loop we're talking about. But the messages get louder and louder until finally we're like, man, what am I missing here? Like, there's something else, because it's trying to bring that to the surface for your awareness. So awareness is the first step. And so what I say to people, first thinking about like, wonder if there could be something to this, is just get really curious. Get really curious about your language. Like I said earlier, how are you talking about yourself? Are you waking up in the morning having thoughts of, ugh, I wish I wasn't in pain. I wish I didn't have to go to this job that I hate. I don't like how I look. How are you talking about yourself? And oftentimes, people are completely unconscious of this. They don't realize it. But if you really think about what you're saying throughout the day, there's a power of the spoken word. If you are speaking all day long about things that you don't like or don't want, guess what you're going to call in more of? It's those things. The subconscious can't process a negative. So it's just like if I ask you to not think of a purple elephant, you're immediately going to think of a purple elephant. This is the same thing with the subconscious mind. So first part is to bring awareness and get curious about your language. And then from there, really start to think about your timeline. When did your symptoms start? What else was happening in your life at that time? And I'll share a little bit of my story, if that's okay.
Of course.
So, when I was a child, I was sexually abused by my grandfather. Started around the age of 5. So, after that very significant emotional event, I had a very strong protector part that was born because it was there to try to keep me safe. And so how this showed up in my life is it impacted, well, first of all, I had what I thought were just my personality traits where I was very type A. I was very into spreadsheets. I was very into math. If you're not early, then you're late. Everything, it's very rigid. It's very structured. And I was like, oh, I'm just type A, or I'm just OCD, or whatever it is. And I just thought that was my personality. Well, it wasn't really my personality. It was my protector part, trying to create some sort of structure and keep me safe. So get curious about those parts of you. Where does that behavior come from? It also, this protector part also impacted my relationships and my ability to, if I wasn't very emotionally connected to somebody, I could be physically intimate, no problem. As soon as I got emotionally intimate with them, that part of me turned off and I couldn't get there anymore. So that's curious. Like when things feel off, don't come from a place of guilt and shame or judgment, but get curious about it because it's all messages from your subconscious. And it also impacted, other areas of my life, like results in my business. There was you achieve a certain level or you get a certain goal, and that protector part can come out and be like, oh, this is brand new, this is not safe, we don't know what this is, let's go back down to our comfort zone where we know what's happening, right? And so really think about, like, even things you feel like are not connected, plot out your timeline and think about, just get curious and bring awareness. That's the first step.
So helpful, because I think then, it's so true too. Like the times when we just have time to actually stop because we're so busy in our lives. It's go,
Right.
go, go. The years go by, especially when we have kids. I know you have kids too, and it's just like the years go by, and next thing you know, you're like, I can't believe another year went by. And
Right.
but we have to like take enough of it. It doesn't even have to take that long, but even if you take 15 minutes each day and start to write, right? And start to like I know one little tip I use sometimes is to bring awareness to these thoughts and beliefs is to, when you notice a thought or belief, write it down.
Yeah.
So that you can like get it out of your head and onto paper. And if you do that for a couple days, you can come up with, oh, that's what's going on in my head. And then it starts to really shift things, right? Because it gets it into the conscious mind, and then you can actually start to work with it. You mentioned about safety, and I think this is a really interesting and important concept that I'm seeing talked about more and more related to trauma recovery and nervous system regulation. So I would love to just get your insights on that too. What do we, when we talk about safety, because it seems like, when we first mention safety, we're probably thinking of like a seatbelt and, like, okay, what does that really mean to be minding our safety or to take care of ourselves in a safe way, right? But we're talking about it different than that. Yes, okay, yes, putting on a seatbelt, but there's more to safety than I think we ever realized before.
Right. So sometimes when I talk about the emotional and energetic work that I do, sometimes people who have never heard of that can get a little turned off, or they're like, that's too woo, that's too airy-fairy, that's not scientific, I don't know about that. So I'd love to just give like a 30-second biochem lesson and kind of stitch the two together for people. And then it goes into this question around safety. So in our cells, we have the mitochondria, which we all probably learned in ninth grade biology that the mitochondria are the powerhouse of the cell, right? It's because they make ATP, which is our cellular energy. So when there is some type of irritant to the cell, whether it's a trauma, a stressor, an injury, an accident, a toxin, whatever it is, there's some type of irritant to the cell. The mitochondria switch from being in powerhouse mode to being in battleship mode because they have to deal with whatever that thing was. So they enter into what's called the cell danger response. And the cell danger response is a 3-step process. The mitochondria has to go through all 3 steps and in the right order. And then it loops back to a place of health and homeostasis where they switch back into into powerhouse mode, where they're now cranking out more ATP and cellular energy, which is what all our cells in our body need to carry out whatever function that they need to carry out. So that process, the cell danger response, is a very normal, healthy, beneficial process. It's just like inflammation is a normal, healthy process for healing. The problem is when it becomes chronic, right? So with the cell danger response, we can get stuck in any one of those 3 steps. And there's actually different disease states and symptomology associated with getting stuck in each step. But a big reason we can get stuck is if we don't feel safe. If on some level, a cellular or even subcellular level, our body thinks, our cells think that there's a bear, that's not a time where we're going to like relax and start healing and switch into rest and digest parasympathetic mode and start healing. We are on guard. We're on alert if we think that there's a bear. And so what are the reasons we can not feel safe? Well, if we've had significant emotional events in our past, whether that's, sometimes people say capital T trauma, lower T trauma, doesn't really matter because it all impacts how safe we feel in our environment. Could also have to do with from age 0 to 7, there's a lot of imprinting that goes on in that age range. So whatever we were exposed to then could be impacting us later in life if we didn't have strong attachment to our mother. These types of things can have an impact if we grew up where there was food scarcity, or if we saw our mom getting beat by our dad. All of these things impact how safe we perceive our environment to be. And so significant emotional events, whether that was a big event or a series of small events, it doesn't matter. If we have heavy toxin exposure in our environment, that doesn't feel safe. That's not in alignment. If our language, again with the language, is in the negative and focused on what we do not want, then we are constantly sending message to our subconscious that we're not in a safe environment. If we're constantly talking about all the things that we don't want and don't like, that's not sending messages of safety to ourselves and to our subconscious. So all of these things contribute to how safe and secure do we feel in our body, in ourselves, and in our environment. And I see this really not to pass any judgment at all on anybody. I send so much love to, my like ultimate goal in life, if I could wave a magic wand, like I want heaven on earth. I want to be in loving relationship with all things and all people around me. And sometimes when I see a person, and again, not from a place of judgment, but from a place of awareness and compassion and love, who I can tell is really struggling with their self-worth, with their sense of purpose, with their physical health, with the way that with their energetic imprint and how they're showing up in the world, the way that they're dressing, I can tell that those people probably don't feel safe in their body because it impacts how we interact with our body. If we don't feel safe, are we going to be expanding and putting ourselves out there? No, we're going to be contracting. There's going to be probably more fear. These emotions have a lower vibration and it impacts our health and our symptomology. Like everything is connected to how safe we feel in our environment.
Yeah. So it makes me think, just even anyone listening to say, or everyone listening, to take a breath and just be like, hey, how do I feel safe? What does that mean to feel safe? And to me too, it kind of goes with these concepts of calm or peace or consistency or predictability, right? Those types of things that create safety versus something that's triggering the stress response and triggering that chaos, back to chaos again.
Right. And I also want to mention too, like a lot of times when people talk about calming the nervous system and safety, there is a lot of conversation around being calm or meditation or slowing down or breath work. And I also want to just offer another perspective and lens, especially because I know you're such a fan of like dancing, but movement too. Like if the thought of sitting still, for some people, they're like, I can't do it. That's going to make my eye twitch. Like, I can't do it.
Sometimes
that's
that
okay.
doesn't feel
It doesn't
safe.
mean that you're doing it wrong, but how can we move that energy through our body? How can we feel safe enough in our body to allow ourselves to move in that way? So that's another way too. I just wanted to mention, and I know you're all about it.
I love it. And that's exactly it. Is like sometimes you have to try different modalities until you find, hey, how do I start to let my nervous system experience a different perspective? And it helps, I think, to understand that it's all about really neuroplasticity, right? Like that
Right.
we can, even if you have had these patterns wired into your nervous system since a young
Mhm.
age, it can shift, right? Even if like sometimes it feels like, oh my gosh, it's been like this forever. How will this ever change? But it can change. Tell us more. Like this doesn't have to stay this way.
No, and that's the other stitch between like the emotional energetic world and the scientific world is that neuroplasticity piece, because we can literally make new neurological connections in our brain. We can rewire things. We can clear out past traumas that have had a blueprint imprinted on our body. We can lift that up and out of the body, and it can happen fast. And that's what's so cool about this work. Like when I went through the process of really releasing all of that trauma that I experienced when I was little, it was like at the end of the movie Aladdin, you know, when Aladdin sets the genie free and like his golden cuffs are coming off of his wrist. You remember that scene? That's how I felt. I was just like I could take a breath for the first time in 3 decades, 3+ decades. And like, I was like free of it. And it was crazy. And then I'll just share a little bit more of this story because it also links like the mind body connection more. Like immediately after that, for me, all of a sudden my body started purging in every way possible, like every bodily fluid. My next period was crazy. I was like hacking up black mucus. I went on a hike the next day and I was like puking all the way up the mountain. I I'll spare you some of the other details, but literally every bodily fluid that there is, I like went through this big purge, and I
Yeah.
was like, "Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
my
So it
body is really
translates,
letting go."
it translates that way too. That like when you're releasing emotions, it can release on a physical level too.
That's right.
It's so
Yeah.
amazing. It's so amazing to see that. And these emotional breakthroughs then can relate to breakthroughs in someone's health. I mean, we, you know, I specialize in helping women with high risk HPV virus, and we mentioned it a little bit earlier. So I'm thinking that, you know, especially those of you listening who are in the midst of knowing you're testing positive and helping your body to clear HPV. I mean, this is such an important point to say, hey, we're dealing with a virus, and we know it's active on a physical level in hijacking the cells and potentially causing abnormal cells. And yet that can also be healing on an emotional level, can help us also with help our immune system to clear this virus. Isn't that something? I see it all the time, by
Yeah.
the way, Brandy. I see it over and over again. Women report it back to me. And so I had to open my eyes to the fact that, oh my gosh, HPV virus is responding to an emotional breakthrough, that it actually weakens the virus and helps the body clear it.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about the immune system, it's not like operating over here in a silo, right? The immune system is deeply impacted by our nervous system. So again, folding back or circling back around to that idea of safety and all of that emotional baggage that we could be carrying along, that impacts how the immune system does its job. And so 100%.
It's really something how what a difference that can make for women, and it's missed, and even it's in the research. There's actually research studies that show that when women are exposed to childhood abuse, not just sexual, it could be sexual abuse, but it could also be emotional, psychological abuse, or any kind of trauma in childhood, let alone trauma in adulthood, they have an increased risk of cervical cancer
Yeah.
unless we start helping them recover from the trauma.
Right.
And it's not talked about in the gynecology office. It's not even talked about in the therapy office. So that's why I'm so glad you and I are talking about it and helping women to know, like, it's testing positive for HPV could be your moment to pivot and finally pay attention to your emotional healing.
Yeah.
Having optimal cortisol and adrenaline levels is essential for health and longevity, and yet the stress in the present and in the past can affect our cortisol and adrenaline levels, causing them to be too high or too low. The thing is that we're not all affected by stress in the same way. So, over the past 2 decades, I've been researching and discovering how to help my patients recover from stress. And I've identified the 5 stress types, which are the 5 common patterns of disruption in cortisol and adrenaline levels. The reason why this is so important is because the treatment is different. When cortisol is too high, we use different herbs, nutrients, and other modalities to bring levels back to optimal than if the levels are too low. So that's why I, through research, developed the stress type quiz, which allows you in under 2 minutes to discover what likely your cortisol and adrenaline levels are, so then you can make decisions about which herbs, nutrients, and other healing activities to choose to help optimize your cortisol and adrenaline again and improve your health now and into the future. Just go to stresstypequiz.com where you can take the quiz and take it from there.
And really, when somebody gets a diagnosis like that, that's another opportunity for us to get curious about our language. What are you saying? Are you saying things that your body is broken, or you feel betrayed by your body, or why is this happening to me? Listen to the language. That's very much being in effect. How can we get up and out of effect and over into being at cause? How can we say, oh, wow, this is a message from my body. Okay, why is this happening for me? What's the message within the mess here? What's the gold within the garbage? How can I transmute and transform and alchemize this to harvest the gold, change the lead into gold of this? And oftentimes when it comes to, in my experience, when it comes to things like HPV or other symptomology or diagnoses that involve the reproductive system, it's boundaries. Did you feel like you weren't protected or you couldn't protect yourself? How much shame are you carrying around for one thing or another? Do you feel like you've lost your sense of power? And then also, if we tie this into, I don't want to, we can, but not to go too much into a rabbit hole around the energetic component and the chakras. But if we think about the cervix, right, that's chakra number 2, that's our sacral chakra. That is our literal creation energy, right? And so if there's blockages there, that impacts our symptomology as well. And the most beautiful thing is when we have all of this awareness and we're like, oh, okay, this is happening for me, not to me. What can I do about this? And we're clearing this out, and we're clearing the emotional baggage, and we're doing all the things on the physical plane, the eating right, supplements, all the things. And then there's this energetic shift, because now this energy can flow. And that energy in our sacral chakra, think that energy literally creates humans. If it creates humans, it can create anything else. And we can use that energy to create abundance, or call in love, or further advance our health, or whatever it is that we want in life, once that energy can flow again. And it's amazing.
Beautiful. It is. It's really shifts the perspective on it. And I see this when women are able to shift that perspective, and then they go, oh my gosh, I'm so grateful I had this diagnosis, because it helped me to see things from a different perspective.
Yeah.
And part of it is this choice to prioritize ourselves. There can be shame simply around having emotional states, whether it's anxiety, depression, irritability. And so then we can feel ashamed of our emotional state, and so then feel like we can't talk about it or do anything about it or invest time or money in it. And so it locks us in, right? It
Yep.
can get us really locked in tight. Same thing happens with HPV. Women get very isolated and alone because they feel ashamed that it's happening in the first place. And so what do you recommend if someone recognizes that they are really in this tight knot where the shame or guilt or fear has them so locked in?
Yeah. So again, I think awareness is key here. So the more we repress and reject, those emotions. Just keep shoving it under the rug. Nothing to see here. La, 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 la. I'm not going to deal with that. Just push it down and repress and reject those emotions. I think it's really important to understand that, the highest prime directive of the unconscious mind is to preserve the body. And the more we repress and reject those unresolved emotions, those are not helpful to the body. They're in fact harmful to the body. So what is the body going to do? It's going to try to bring you messages to the surface to get your attention. Hello, remember me? To try to get resolution. And then we can use there's lots of modalities. The modalities that I use a lot of neurolinguistic programming, quantum time technique, hypnosis, past life regression, inner child work, parts integration. We can use different tools and clear those negative emotions out of the body so that the body has resolution and then can heal. Because the other amazing thing about the subconscious is that, yes, it has a blueprint for exactly where you're at in your health and in your life now, and it has a blueprint of perfect health and healing. It's already inside of you. There's nothing you have to go get from your external environment. It's already inside of you. We have to just clear out what's blocking us, and it already knows what to do. Because remember, it's so much smarter than we are and than we will ever be. And so once we can do that, and the beautiful thing about, from my perspective, about these modalities and the type of work that I do is that it's not a content dependent process, meaning, unlike therapy, I don't need you to rehash the whole situation to me, especially if that's going to re-anchor in traumas and be re-traumatizing to you. I don't need that content. The subconscious doesn't need you to get that all out again in order to clear it, which is beautiful.
Amazing. And even if I'm just thinking, like, some of the things, the modalities you just mentioned, may be new concepts for people. I don't know if there's a chance you could kind of explain a little bit about each or some of them, just so everybody has a sense of, like, oh, okay, that could be, you can, and I'm thinking that when you work with someone, you kind of get a sense of what might work best for them, or what, their situation will guide you what tools to use.
100%. I don't have like a blanket protocol. We're going to do this and then this and then this and then this. I'm sure you're the same way. Everything is about bioindividuality. And so, yeah, the tools, I've got a whole big toolbox, but the tools that we choose to pull out are dependent on the person. So neurolinguistic programming is all about the brain, language, connection. And so really being able to communicate with the subconscious mind, making new neurological connections, busting through limiting beliefs. All of that can be done through neurolinguistic programming. Quantum time technique is really all about going back on your timeline to different events that happened in your life, getting the wisdom and the learnings, the opportunity for growth and change. Once we get the wisdom and the learnings, the emotion will disappear. And we can test it, we can future pace ourselves and test it, and it's highly effective. And then hypnosis is just a state of trance. Some people really have an adverse reaction to the word hypnosis. It's just a state of trance. If you've ever done any kind of meditation, that's hypnosis. And also, all hypnosis is self-hypnosis. So I think a lot of people also can feel like, well, you're going to make me do something against my will. That's impossible. All hypnosis is self-hypnosis. It's just getting into a state of trance. If you've ever like pulled into your driveway and you were like, oh shoot, I don't really remember my drive home. What just happened? I kind of zoned out there. You were in trance. That's hypnosis. That's all it is. But when we're in that state, then the subconscious mind is more open, because I talked about earlier, we have the conscious mind and then we have the subconscious mind. And then what can happen is, in between, we have what's called the analytical wedge. The analytical wedge is there to try to keep us safe, and not let things get into our subconscious mind. So, like, if you've ever done any affirmations, right? And you're like, I'm clearing myself of HPV, or I'm a money magnet, or I call in abundance, or whatever, but your subconscious mind is not really open to hearing it, it's going to hit that analytical wedge and it's like, no, you're not. That's not true. What are you talking about, girl? And so we want to clear out what we need to clear out so we can remove the wedge, have integration of the subconscious and the unconscious. And when we're in a state of trance, we're removing the wedge so that we can really get into our subconscious, communicate effectively, clear out what isn't serving us, install things that we want, new programming that we want to be running in the background. So hypnosis can be a very effective tool for that. Past life work is and not all people believe in past life regressions, and that's totally fine too. It's not a requirement, but the perspective there is that different programming and limiting beliefs can be passed down through the DNA and through the lineage, but also from past lives as well. And then inner child work, really being able to speak to that little girl that maybe experienced things or saw things or heard things that she didn't know what to do with at the time. And that can be a really beautiful process as well. And then parts integration, we can have different parts of us that can be conflicted. So, for example, we might have a part of us that really wants to get healthy and invest in ourselves, or do something different that we haven't done, maybe like leave the Western medical model, or whatever it is. And then we might have a part of us that's like, that's dumb. That's not scientific. That doesn't work. Or what, it's important to remember all parts have a positive intention. They're there for a reason. They all have a positive intention, but their behaviors can make us feel more fragmented, right? And so we need to integrate those parts, get everybody on the same page. And so the body doesn't feel fragmented and feels whole and complete and in alignment. Everybody's moving towards what it is that we actually want to experience. Most people, many people have a strong protector part, like I did, where it's like, I want to present to the world this way, but I can't because I don't feel safe. So I'm going to have this protector part come out and show off these personality traits that really aren't me, but it's just what I'm doing because I need to make sure I'm safe. That's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about parts, and making sure that all of that is integrated so the body feels whole.
So
that's a high level.
Oh,
rundown.
That's so helpful though. That's so helpful. And for just everyone to know that these are all ways that we can help understand ourselves and rewire, enhance neuroplasticity so we can shift the effect of trauma from our past. Because what I'm always really emphasizing is like, just because what you went through doesn't mean that it has to negatively impact your future.
That's right.
And so that's where we get that choice to say, hey, I can see now that I did experience something in my past and it has the potential to impact my future, or it may even be impacting my health now. I want to do something about it. I want to intervene, and I'm looking for ways to do that and people who can help me do that. And you're offering now these services by Zoom, by phone, so people could be wherever they are and get your help.
That's right. Yep.
Beautiful. What have you seen? So what are you noticing when you're working with people on this level? Like, give a sense of like, what kind of transformations do you see?
Oh my gosh. Since I started doing this work, I feel like everything that people do on what I call the physical plane, which is like how we're eating, how we're moving our body, the supplements we're taking, all of those things that we're doing on the physical plane, which are all amazing, and I still use all of those tools. But all those things that we're doing on the physical plane work better and faster when we have this work. It's like running against the wind with a parachute on our back. And then if we can reach down and unclick the parachute, it's like now we're off, right? Everything works so much better and faster. And so I just had a client, I actually did a an in-person breakthrough with her where I flew to her and I spent 3 days with her. And it was a very beautiful, magical container, healing container that we were able to do this work together in. I'm so grateful for those types of experiences. And she had been hanging on to these significant emotional events for 47 years. And she was having what she called inflammation spirals, where something would set her off. She had EOE. She would have full body hives. She'd be very inflamed. Sometimes her throat would close up. She'd have to go to the ER. And it was just like, she was in a loop, right? Sometimes she would flare. Sometimes she'd be okay. And she was looping. And once we were able to clear out all of this stuff, she's yet to have another inflammation spiral. And also, in all other areas of life, it's so magical to see because she is calling in community where for so much of her life she felt like a lone wolf. She couldn't do that because of her strong protector parts. She's, the relationship with her husband, the relationship with her sexuality and her ability to tap into that beautiful creation energy inside of herself is now awakening and coming on board. And it's so beautiful. And that's what I want people to really think about is like, think about, what do you want in your life? What do you want? Like, if you could wave a magic wand, what do you want? Like, what would you choose to spend your days doing? Where would you live? What kind of house? What kind of relationships would you have? What causes would you give back to? What type of impact would you have on the world? Like, if you really allow your imagination to run wild and curate a life exactly how you want it, and then after you do that, like that's your 10 out of 10 life, right? And then I want you to imagine, what if that was just a 2? How much better could it get? And like just allow yourself to think of the absolute limitless possibilities when you are no longer limiting yourself on a subconscious level.
It really is something when we start to see how much it can be influencing, and and sometimes we see it's a lot easier to see in others, right? Like you might notice it in your family members or something, and you're like, if but then how come it's so hard to notice in ourselves?
So this is actually a really amazing, helpful concept for this. It's called perception is projection, where the idea is that the people who come into our lives are mirrors of ourselves. So if somebody's in your life and you're like, that person really irritates me. I can't stand that coworker. She's always late, or she never gets her work done on time, or whatever it is, they just irritate the crap out of you. Well, how can we take radical responsibility for the results in our life? That person is in your awareness for a reason, because they are a mirror of you, my love. And so get curious about it instead of like being like, oh, she's so dumb. She's so late. I can't believe like she gets paid more than me, or whatever your annoyance is. Okay, where in your life are you not following through on your commitments? Where in your life are you maybe not being punctual? Like, everything is a mirror. And on the flip side, when somebody comes into your life that you freaking can't love, you want to be around them, they make you feel better, they're so much fun, they have great energy, that's also inside of you. That's a reflection of you. So perception is projection. So if you're noticing something in your family members, it's a beautiful opportunity just to get curious about the amazing opportunity for transformation in yourself that there is.
Wow. Wow. Thank you. It just makes it all so, you make it feel so attainable and like within reach, and like just normalizing this is like, hey, we're human.
Yeah.
This is going to be part of being human, right?
Yeah.
It's not that there's something wrong or broken, like you said. This is just part of living in a human experience, is what I'm
That's
hearing
right.
you talk about.
That's right. Yep.
Mm.
Just like Mary Morrissey says, spiritual beings having a human experience.
Absolutely. We start to realize that. Yeah, it's like, okay, this is our human experience. And part of that is understanding ourselves and understanding how we can support ourselves through what we go through. And that becomes one thing Mary says that I love is where she says the journey is the curriculum.
That's right.
like, this is what we're up to.
That's right. And what do you want to experience? You can experience, what is it that you want to experience? Because waking up in 50 years from now, what do you want to feel at that time? What do you want to feel when you look back on your life? You want to have enjoyed the crap out of this is the second time I've said crap on your show, but you want to enjoy the journey so much, matters so much more than the destination.
It's yeah, amazing. Oh my gosh, thank you so much, Brandy. This has been so helpful, and I'm definitely going to have, if anyone's interested in being in touch with Brandy and learning more, working with her directly, I'll have her information in the notes here so you can go directly to find her and get in contact with her and find out more about the work that Brandy's doing and how she can help you. Brandy, do people oftentimes like say set up several sessions and work with you over time? Is that how it seems? Does that tend to work that way?
Yeah, when I'm doing the breakthrough work, so first we have an initial call, which will be done by me personally, so I can really get a feel for where we're at, what your goals are, and we'll roundtable together an idea for what that looks like. Then from there, my breakthrough process, I kind of break it into hours. So, for example, there's like a 6-hour breakthrough, a 12-hour breakthrough, not all in one setting. But but that way you're not locked into, it's not like, okay, you have 4 1-hour sessions that we're going to work through, because we want to flow. We want to be able to just work with your human body and all the things that make you unique. And so, yes, it is multiple sessions, but it's really personalized to be in flow and to match what it is that you need.
Amazing. It makes so much sense to me because I also have a sense that, like, I mean, you mentioned boundaries before. Boundaries is, I think, another concept that we don't learn enough about that in our, like in school or wherever. And definitely a lot of times from our childhood, we didn't learn boundaries very well. So
Right.
it's like, at the same time, though, in healing, there it's important to have some boundaries, of course, but be able to give space too, so that you have the
That's right.
space to heal.
That's
So
right.
maybe you can speak to that a little bit. How do you find that, like, how do people start to understand what boundaries look like, and how learning to create emotional boundaries can be so helpful?
Yeah, that's a big one. So, I mean, first, it's like bringing awareness to where in your past have your boundaries been crossed? And how can we take that experience and map that across to your life now? Where do we need to set more boundaries in this 3-dimensional world that we're all living in? What boundaries need to be set? For me, I went this is so great. Like, sometimes saying this out loud, I'm like, wait, you did what? So my whole life, up until I went through all of this own process for myself, I would continue to go over to my grandparents' house where my grandfather was for holidays and to hang out. And I was not the only person in the family that this happened to. So can you imagine, like, Thanksgiving dinner? He's sitting at the head of the table and just a table full of women that have been impacted by this. I'm like, that's crazy. What was I doing? But that was my programming. Just keep shoving it under the rug. Nothing to see here. And so after I went through all of this work myself, that's boundary. I am no longer going to interact with this lower frequency. Everybody here has their own free will to choose to heal or not. I will no longer be a part of this lower frequency. And so that was a boundary. And so it's really just figuring out what was the boundary and then zooming out, kind of chunking it up to more of a broad category. And then how can we map that across to where people are crossing your boundaries now, so that you can protect your peace.
And I think
Because
that's so
that's your right.
And sometimes it is that, like you keep saying, like, the more we have awareness, all of a sudden, once we have awareness and we're expressing and we're seeing, oh, this is the impact of this, then creating a boundary sometimes feels so much simpler because it's so
Right.
clear in front of you.
That's right.
like you were just expressing, like, why would I do that?
Yeah,
Or if you don't have awareness, it's like, we're just doing what we usually do.
that's right.
Mm.
Yep, exactly.
So powerful and so freeing. And it's amazing the difference. I see it too in my practice, the difference it makes in people's lives and their health and their connection with themselves. A lot of times women go from feeling so separate within themselves, right? This thing where
Right.
we're angry at our body, we feel ashamed of our body, and yet our body is our vessel through our lifetime, and it's always in an effort to help us heal. So it's like we start to go, oh, wait a minute, I've been angry at my own body when my body is the thing that's here for me. That's me. And so,
Right.
right, it can really help, I think, to bring us. You talked about integration of subconscious and conscious, but I'm thinking this integration too with our physical body to go, wow, I can be a whole person, showing up as a whole person and honoring my body, working together with
Right.
my body.
Yep, 100%.
Mm. Oh my goodness. Well, thank you so much again for joining us today, Brandy. So much insight. I'm sure it's going to be so many people listening going, "Oh my gosh, this is me. This is huge. This is the thing I need to work on and prioritize, right? And be able to just take that first step and say, "Okay, I'm going to set up a session. I'm going to see what's possible. I'm going to lean into it, and you're going to go at your pace." Doesn't have to be diving in and overwhelming you. It can just be like, let's let this just start to open up gently, and then listen to your body along the way so that you can experience the healing and not go back into the trauma state.
That's right. That's exactly right. Well, thank you so much for having me, Donnie. I love talking to you about this.
Yay! Is there anything else you'd like women to know, or anyone listening to know, about this connection between the mind and the body, and the mind body healing?
I want you to remember that everything that has happened is for your highest and best. As long as you are willing to lean in and get the wisdom and the learnings and the lesson and alchemize it, then you get to have the gold out of it. And so everything is happening for you. We just have to be willing to listen to the messages that our internal innate wisdom is sending us. And then just suppose things could get better than you could ever imagine, and lean into the possibility of what that would look like, because it is possible.
Beautiful. Thank you again so much. Thanks everyone for listening in to How Humans Heal. And if you haven't already subscribed, I welcome you to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. I look forward to connecting with all of you again soon. I look forward to talking to you again soon too, Brandy. Thank you.
Thanks, Donnie. Have a good one.
Thanks for listening to How Humans Heal. If you liked this episode, leave a rating and a review. And for more resources, visit drdonnie.com.